Sunny, first of all, what is Motto?
Well, we are a brand strategy and design agency, and we work on brand transformations for innovative tech companies, as you said there. We typically join forces with visionary leadership teams, executive teams at very pivotal inflection points in their business to help them sort of define what's new and what's next. And we really are known as this kind of big idea company. So we work with leadership teams to kind of find what is that big idea worth rallying around? How do we make it famous for them? How do we articulate it within the company and without the company in terms of external? And how do we get people really excited to champion and build that future with them? So that's kind of us working with all sorts of brands like Minnesota Vikings, Google, Hershey's, Virgin, and a lot of challenger startups as well.
So, Sonny, what's I guess some of the types of work you're doing now with clients, and maybe how's that changed over the years?
Well, I think a lot of teams in particular are, navigating a very tricky landscape. And so a lot of our work is really focused on leadership alignment. Many teams with the advance of AI, with the way the world is evolving and changing so quickly, they need to adapt and be very agile. And so what we're often doing is we're coming in and working with visionary leadership teams to sort of help them align around what is it that they're fighting for? What is it that they're fighting against? What future are they trying to move the organization towards? And how do we get everybody to adopt that and really buy into that future? And most importantly, really not just anticipate it, but really be proactive in trying to move their businesses to that future so they can remain relevant and achieve resonance in this wild landscape that we're all in.
Do you feel like companies, Paul and I were in Newark at NJIT earlier in the week, do you feel like companies and the C-suite really understand the role of AI in their business and like have the right vocabulary, have the right strategy, have the right outward facing stuff?
Yes and no. I think that leadership teams need to understand that AI is now part of the dominant conversation, and it is important to not only mobilize your team and understand the technology to become really fluent in the technology, but to adopt that technology company wide. But I think it even goes higher up, right, with visionary leadership, which is what I really speak about and am an expert in, which is, how do visionary leaders help their teams not only see that future, but continue using these tools to sort of amplify it, to make efficiency greater, to just help them transform, to stay relevant and meet that new future.
Sonny, it used to be back in the day, if you wanted to build a brand, you just bought a 30-second spot on network television. Those days, I believe, are over. What are some of the successful ways or strategies that you've used with some of your clients?
Well, I think a lot of it is positioning, making sure that you have a very clear point of view. What do you stand for? What do you stand against? And more importantly, how do you get everybody, both your audience and your internal team, aligned to that? And then what is that sort of core story that you're trying to tell, and to remain that, to build that authenticity within the company? So you're trying to sort of have something to say, not just something to sell. And that's extraordinarily difficult when things are very competitive, when you have a lot of people in many businesses doing the same thing as you. What is going to define your competitive advantage? What is that cutting edge thing that you bring to the table? And how do you get people really excited about it? And how do you make it in a way that it's clear, it's compelling, it's articulate, and people want to be part of that dialogue? And so a lot of our work is really helping teams and organizations just define that. What is that big idea? What is that thing that you want people to rally around? And then how do we ultimately build that into the brand and into the mechanisms, into our ecosystem, into our language, into our brand's system, essentially, to get people really excited about that.
How did you get into this business, and how did you start your own company? What was that journey like?
Well, I was on track to be a veterinarian.
No kidding.
I was in college, and my partner and I dropped out of college in our early 20s to start Motto, and we had been moonlighting as designers on the side. and just kind of fell in love with it and started to be hired for it. And so that was 2005. This is 18 years later, and now we've worked with some of the biggest brands on earth. And it's a labor of love because it's taught us like how to evolve with times. I mean, when we started, it was yellow pages and digital ads, basically like printed materials, whereas now everything's digital and everything's much more diverse. But back then, you had to really continue adapting every couple of years, and then also seeing organizations that you're working with also have to be agile and adapt. And your strategies and the way that you move teams forward is some of it remains the same. Values and authenticity will always be at the heart, I think, of every organization. You have to know what you stand for and what you don't. And ultimately, again, what is your competitive difference? What is your point of view in everything? And so as brands become more demanding of not only people demanding of, what do they feel about political issues? What do they feel about the issues of our time? You find organizations having to be and called upon to speak about these things, to really sort of plant their flags. And so that's why we call the company motto, is because what is your flag? What flags are you planting so that people can understand who you are as a rallying call for who you are?
We only have like 20 seconds, but do you think if you had started this business today, you would have been able to do it? Like, has the environment just changed this much?
It has changed, but I think that would not have been. I think visionary leaders are driven by two things: innovation and progress. And I believe that if I had to start this business today, I would absolutely be able to. We would be able to do it because I think that if you are a visionary leader, you're able to understand and follow, kind of move towards the trends and move your business towards that new future. So absolutely.